Good evening, SHRs. Welcome to our webinar this evening. I'd also like to take this opportunity to welcome all our guests from Sandparks, those who are attending the webinar tonight, as well as to all our applicants and new members who might be joining us for one of the very first webinars. We look forward to hosting you at a lot more webinars into the future, and we hope you enjoy our webinar this evening. Before we begin the webinar and I introduce our guest speakers tonight, just a reminder that after the webinar, we will be doing the draw from the concert for the prize that was kindly donated by Sandparks for the 3-night stay at one of the Arid Parks. So please stay on. Francois Pierce and Peter Brooks will be managing the process after the presentation, and we will then have the lucky draw for all the ticket purchases. Just another point, the presentation tonight is obviously quite a wide screen. And just from a technical point of view, once the screen is sharing, you will see on the right-hand side, often you get your speakers as well as the other panelists. It's quite easy just to then click at the top on the second button from the left-hand side, and you will just have the speaker view. So you will see our guests talking, and they will be the only ones on the screen. You can then move that screen around so it best suits you for your viewing, whichever is the easiest for all of you tonight. So we look forward to a fantastic evening. It is a great pleasure for me to introduce our guest speakers this evening. As you'll be familiar with the award-winning and internationally acclaimed movie, STROOP, Journey into the Rhino Horn War. And this evening, we are honored to have the filmmakers here to take us through their journey in the making of this movie. Bonné and Susan will be sharing with us the remarkable experiences filming the documentary and the insights and repercussions that emerge from it. They will also be giving us a glimpse into their new documentary, Kingdoms of Fire, Ice and Fairy Tales, which is due for imminent release, and I'll let them go into a little bit more detail about that. But I'd just like to first just do a brief introduction on who our guest speakers are. Bonné de Bot is an award-winning television presenter and filmmaker. Bonné is well known for her in-depth reporting on wildlife and environmental issues. For nearly a decade, Bonné has presented in both English and Afrikaans on South African television and radio, 7 seasons of the long-running wildlife series 50/50. As well as special correspondent on SABC Newsroom and Kyknet's Groot Plaas. Bonné's series, Rhino Blog, on television throughout Africa and in Europe, has been rated the #1 show on People's Weather, the channel that airs the series in Africa. Based on this popularity, the channel have commissioned a 13-part series called 180 Degrees with Bonné de Bot, which will air in 2021. Awards for her filmmaking and her on-screen presence include the prestigious Sandparks Kudu Award for Best Journalists in 2015 and 2019, the SAB Environmental Media Award, a South African Film and Television Award, a SAFTA, and the Atia Kafia Media Firki Award. A career highlight has been her recent nomination alongside Dame Judi Dench for Best Presenter at last year's Jackson Media Awards, known as the Oscars of Wildlife. Bold and fearless is how Bonné's work on STROOP has been called by South Africa's media. Her partner in the filmmaking, Susan Scott, has been making documentary films for over 2 decades. After studying cinematography and the craft of non-linear editing in the US, as mere mortals do not know what that means, so you'll have to explain a bit later. Susan went on to mentor with an ACE editor specializing in documentaries in Washington, DC. She's been privileged to cut some of the best documentary filmmakers in the US, as well as in South Africa, where she is now living. She has won numerous awards, among them 4 SAFTAs, a Jackson Media Award, as well as 5 SAB Environmental Media Awards for her work. In 2010, Susan was awarded the use of the acronym from the South African Editors Guild for her immense contribution to editing documentaries. Shortly afterwards, Susan returned to her love of cinematography and started making her own documentaries on wildlife and the environment. Her filming was recognized by Africa Geographic when they named her an unsung conservation hero for her work behind the camera. And she's been highly commended for her stills photography on rhino at the prestigious Wildlife Photographer of the Year Award in London. In 2014, Bonné and Susan embedded themselves in the front lines of the rhino poaching war for the 4-year film titled STROOP Journey into the Rhino Horn War. STROOP takes place on the battlegrounds of the Kruger National Park and Shihlui-Umfolozi Game Reserve, the two hardest hit areas in the world where the filmmakers were given unprecedented access to film in inaccessible and the most poached areas of the park. Bonné and Susan will take us from enforcement to rehabilitation of orphan calves, to looking at the controversial commercialization of rhinos, to the dark underground back rooms of Vietnamese and Chinese smugglers, and eventually to a rhino horn user at the end of the supply chain. STROOP has received critical acclaim and was officially selected for 35 film festivals, winning 30 awards while being broadcast and streamed in nearly 100 countries around the globe in 7 languages. Their second film, The Adventure Quest Kingdoms of Fire, Ice, and Fairy Tales, has been given glowing reviews in the press and will be broadcast at the end of 2020. Bonné and Susan are great supporters of the SANParks Honorary Rangers. A percentage of all sales of STROOP movies through the park shops being donated to the SHR organization. Bonné and Susan also generously donate any prize money received to the SHR and are continually encouraging members of the public to support our organization. The SHR have also been provided with this opportunity to purchase the STROOP movie to do some fundraising, and we thank you both for this opportunity and for the work that you have done in assisting our organization. I'd like to now hand over to you, Bonné and Susan, and we thank you for your time, and we really appreciate the work that you are doing in this fantastic cause. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Jimmy. I think you are going to pop us through onto big screen, and then Bonné is going to do an intro, and then we'll go through to the presentation. Am I correct?
If you just start your share screen with your presentation.
Okay, great. We'll do it now.
Okay, so, right, there we go.
Okay, great. Well, firstly, hello everyone. Jimmy, thank you for that lovely introduction. And thank you also for inviting myself and Susan to be part of this webinar series. I'm always very excited when I get the opportunity to say a few words in my mother tongue, although this whole presentation will be in English. Maar ek wil net graag sê, baie dankie aan elkeen van julle die SANParke ereveldwagters vir die ongelooflike werk wat julle doen. Julle was nog altyd vir my 'n voorbeeld van kinderjare en ek dra julle werketiek saam met my ook op my pad vorentoe en ook in my loopbaan. So I just wanted to say thank you so much to each and every one of you for the incredible work you do as the SANParks Honorary Rangers. You set such a great example, and I carry your ethos with me on my journey and in my career. So thank you very much. So as you already heard, myself and Susan made a documentary film called STROOP Journey into the Rhino Horn War, which actually world premiered just over 2 years ago at the San Francisco Green Film Festival, where it also won the Green Tenacity Award. And STROOP really took the world by storm. It was officially selected, as Jimmy also said, for 35 film festivals around the world, and it also won 30 international awards. But that's not why we made the film. We made the film so that no one can say, I didn't know. And that is why we are here tonight, to share our journey with you, the filming of STROOP, the challenges we had, and believe me, we had plenty of them. But luckily also the success and the outreach we had with the film after we completed it. And then a quick glimpse into our new documentary called Kingdoms of Fire, Ice and Fairy Tales. We are thrilled to share our trailer with you, and it's actually launching tomorrow on Showmax.
Well, you can see why Bonné is in front of camera. I must admit to being a little outside of my comfort zone. I usually stay quietly behind camera, and you know, this was a great honor for both of us to be able to be a part of the Honorary Rangers webinar series. So we immediately jumped to be a part of this. And I suppose in this new virtual world, there's no way we can ask you to put your hands up to see if you've watched Strip. And I know the Honorary Rangers...
And be careful now.
And I know the Honorary Rangers spoke last night about possibly putting a poll together. I don't know if you guys are going to be running that in the background to see who has indeed watched Strip. But for those of you who've seen Strip, we will be showing a few clips from the film. Don't worry. You know, it's not going to take you back to the emotional lows you experienced watching the film. We know that was a tough watch, but it's an important one. And you know, for those of you who've said that you cannot watch it, we implore you to please try and make the effort. I know it's a big ask. It's still available on Showmax, and in actual fact, it's free on Showmax. You know, they've got a 14-day you know, free usage thing. I don't know how it works. Yeah, it's like a trial period. So please do take advantage of that. You can log in and watch it. And I know Mnet have done a really good job of still showing it on their movie channels. And of course, as Jimmy mentioned, it's still available in the park shops. The DVDs, percentage there goes to the Honorary Rangers. And yeah, and we just got it onto Take-A-Lot. So that's fantastic. If you're doing your Christmas shopping, just pop one into your cart. And, you know, DVD is easy. You know, we don't mind if you share it with your family and friends. It does help us still get our film loans paid off. And we still have those, unfortunately. But you know, I think it is important to be able to share the story and for people to see what's going on. I mean, we've had many people say that they thought they understood the crisis, and it really brought it home for them when they watched the film. And in fact, we also say the first hour of the film is, I see there's the poll, so I'm actually going to click here, yes, because I have actually watched it. I don't know why it's popping up on my screen here, but I hope that's not staying up there, Jimmy. Let's see if that goes away. You guys can't see that, I'm sure. But yeah, so as Jimmy mentioned, when we have won awards, despite all the awards that the film has won, only 2 of them offered prize money. And the first one we had to give to our mothers because we actually moved in with our mothers during the filming of Stroop. And then obviously the second one, the prestigious Sandparks Kudu Award, we obviously gave to the Honorary Rangers. And that's actually along with the DVD money. So thank you to those of you who did buy DVDs. That along with the DVD money is going to a tribute, the canine Killer working dog. There's a tribute to Killer that's in the works. And we actually have a funny story about Killer at the end of the presentation. So we can't wait to share that with you later on.
We all know about the rhino poaching crisis. It's been on our radar since the start of this decade. But we have a small introduction in Stroop where we actually show you how we got to doing such a big film, an independent film, specifically on rhinos. Here's the clip.
Oh dear, I'm not sure why it's not playing. Let me just see. I think that poll might have had something to do with it. Let's see here. Okay, I'm good to go.
So then I'll just do 2.
It's your mode of transport for today, Devon. This is hilarious.
This used to be our day job.
Okay, one more, quickly. Yeah. Okay, I'm on close on you. Hold on, and go.
It's not every day one gets a chance to live their dream, but here both of us were, living an outdoor life, what we had dreamed of doing since we were kids. Susan trained as a cinematographer in the States, but opportunities were limited for female cines back in the 90s. Returning home to South Africa, she edited for some of the best wildlife filmmakers until she was brave enough to start filming again. My path was very different. Approached by a modeling scout during my college years, I became a model after graduation. It was a surreal experience that lasted several years, but my heart never left wildlife.
The more we debate this,
And I chose a field reporting job with South Africa's national broadcaster over an agency in London.
in the heart of South
It
Africa,
was the best thing I ever did. Both of us were successful,
discussion on illegal wildlife.
and it was a comfortable life.
Rhinos are very sociable animals.
Fast forward 4 years later, and here we are, fearing for our lives.
Oh, so maybe if you can stick here as well. I'm going to stick here as well. There's no turning around now.
So why did we quit our jobs, cash in our investments, even move in with our mothers? What caused us to give up everything?
Okay, Bonné. Now when you're ready.
This caused our life change.
Sorry, give me a second.
And we had to get to the bottom of why.
So during my time presenting on the Nature and Wildlife Show 50/50 on SABC, also being a special correspondent for Newsroom and ENCA and various radio stations around the country, I knew I had to bring the wonder of nature into people's living rooms. And in that way, hopefully play a part in people appreciating the beauty of it all. And I did plenty of stories over the years, very fortunate, uplifting, positive stories. But then in 2010, something happened. Organized criminal syndicates started targeting our rhinos here in South Africa. And we saw dramatic escalation in rhino poaching. We had local syndicates were being arrested, lawyers, farmers, vets, pilots, policemen, even some in the Hawks. And the greed behind it all was really startling. And so I knew that, yes, although wildlife and environmental issues are part of my whole portfolio, rhino specifically then became a real passion for me.
Yeah, and at that time, I was doing my dream job. I was working as a film editor, cutting wildlife footage together. Amazing job. But a few things happened to me. I needed more out of what I was doing. And I'm not sure if it was a midlife thing that was happening there, but I'm an outdoors person. And I suppose it was the 20 years of being in a dark room and seeing this incredible footage of the outdoors, of nature. And it was getting too much for me. And so I still carried on editing for clients, but I started looking at doing small stories for 50/50. And in 2013, they approached me to do a rhino update for them, working with Bonné.
And the team at 50/50 gave us 12 minutes to do the story. And I thought to myself, how can we tell an in-depth story about the rhino poaching crisis in 12 minutes? But in any case, we went to the Kruger National Park to film, and the rangers took us to a crime scene, a double carcass. You saw that clip a couple of seconds ago. There we go. And Susan said to me, Bonné, sit in between the two carcasses and do your lines to camera. Do a link. Tell the viewers what you're feeling, what you're seeing, what you're experiencing. And it was in that moment where I just thought, you know, how can humanity be so cruel? And how can we, as South Africans, allow this to happen? And I knew I had to do something more. I really have to get this across to people back home. Those people I used to show the wonders of nature to now really needed to see the cruel, horrific slaughter, the reality our rhinos, these iconic, beautiful animals, are facing on a daily basis.
For those on the front lines, fear is the overwhelming feeling. For the rest of us, it's easy not to engage when our lives are so full. But every 8 hours here on Earth, a rhino is killed. So by the time you go to sleep tonight and wake tomorrow morning, a rhino will be dead for no reason other than for the horn it carries on its face. You'll go to work, and sometime after your lunch break, another one. And when you head home for dinner, poachers are on the tracks of a third rhino. Every single day, 3 rhinos are lost to our planet. Since 2011, nearly 7,000 in South Africa alone.
So really, that's where the idea for STROOP was birthed. And, you know, for both of us, we had a problem. We knew that we couldn't make the film for a broadcaster. My background had been mostly National Geographic and Animal Planet, and for Bonné, the national broadcaster, the SABC. And as amazing as it is to have a television program on any of those platforms, they do come with some kind of, how should we put it, some kind of censorship. You know, advertisers don't like seeing blood or animals suffering, preempting their slots that they've bought to sell washing powder or whatever it is. And, you know, they also don't like, you know, broadcasters don't like political controversy, upsetting an Asian country, or tackling issues like corruption inside government, certainly not in entertainment slots. They like to please their audience with entertainment. And as we all know, broadcasters need advertising to survive. So we both knew the system really well because that's where we'd come from. And we were fully entrenched in it. And I think we knew that wasn't going to work for us. We would have to do something different, you know, going forward.
So it really was a problem, the fact that we wanted to show the real, true and raw rhino story. We knew we couldn't do it the television way. So we had to remove ourselves out of the system and do this film independently. And that was a huge challenge. We thought it would be the only challenge, but we had many along the way. But money, or let me rather say the lack thereof, was a huge challenge. No one believed in us. People in the industry said, you know, who's going to watch a film about rhino poaching? And of course, we applied for grants, but we weren't successful because we didn't have a track record as filmmakers. I'm a presenter and Susan an editor. So that was really a real big challenge for us with our filming is actually getting funding and getting finance to make the film.
And I think for both of us, we didn't realize what we were becoming. We were turning into, I guess, self-starters. You know, it's a fancy entrepreneurial term, which we only just learned. But, you know, we knew that we believed in ourselves so much that, you know, we had this passion for rhinos, and we knew that there were other people out there who would have that same passion and would want to see what the heck was happening. They'd want to see the story. And we did start slowly at first. We worked fewer hours at our salaried place of work, but we eventually had to start pulling from our investments, sold our homes, and as you heard earlier, we even moved in with our mothers.
Yes, we have moved out in the meantime, if you're wondering. As new independent filmmakers, it wasn't easy not earning a salary. I have to be honest about that. And we thought the film would take 6 months to make. We ended up making it for 4 years, so much longer than we anticipated. So as we were weaning ourselves out of the system and into truly independent filmmakers, we had to adapt. We had to use platforms we've never used before to raise funds. And these are crowdfunding platforms. We did 2 campaigns, one locally on Thunder Fund and one internationally on Indiegogo. And we got a lot of support from our international supporters, but I think South Africans weren't that comfortable with the platforms. And so we had to turn to social media. Now, I know there's a lot of narrative about social media being this very negative space, and of course there is truth to that. But without social media, we just wouldn't be here, and STROOP wouldn't have been made. It really helped us get through the filmmaking process.
And I think, you know, it was important, you know, social media was important for many reasons. And I've got a story here that I think is very important to share. You know, this is how we engage the public through our filming. So right from the very beginning, from the very first bit of film that we rolled, we would post about it and we would put stories out there. And And obviously, asking people to forward buy a copy of the film helped us tremendously. But, this also came at a time of rhino fatigue. There'd been huge interest in the rhino poaching crisis in the first few years. But mainstream media were telling us all the time that the public were tired of seeing dead rhinos. And, in our Facebook engagement, the posts, the comments, and I know many of you did that. You really commented and you brought that dialogue through for us to be able to see, so that we knew otherwise. We knew that the public were not tired of doing. Of course, nobody likes to see dead rhinos, but the public were engaged and cared, very much cared. So, that helped to set that straight. And one instance, you can see Bonné here sitting outside court. We were waiting to film outside court. We had all our permissions in place and we were due to film that day. It was a bail hearing, which was probably going to be postponed, and as later turned out, was postponed. When we arrived there, as I said, we had all the court permissions in place. We spoke to the court manager. The magistrate, for whatever reason, had decided to not allow filming in the courtroom that day. So that was a huge blow for us. And we waited during one of the adjournments, and you can see here's Bonné waiting outside the magistrate's office. And Bonné immediately whipped out her phone. And as soon as he came in and said, please, I have to ask you to reconsider, here's the engagement that, that we got on our post yesterday saying we were coming through to court. And, it was amazing to see that the magistrate could not believe that this puny little bail hearing, in his, kind of small court was being watched, or people around the world, from the States to Australia, the UK, Spain, even Italy. We had comments the day before asking, keep us posted, keep us informed with what's happening. And, all the way into Cape Town and PE, where people in PE were, got their own court issues going on, and sort of, leaving comments, can't wait to see what happens, keep us posted, hope the prosecutor can get what's needed. And he was blown away by this. And he said, oh my goodness, I had no idea. This is almost like a live broadcast. Of course you can go in and film. So, I mean, that was an incredible, that we felt so empowered, almost having this social media army behind us. And, we've still got a lot to get through on the presentation, but, our journey is over with STROOP. There's so many other environmental journalists and environmental filmmakers. And, a lot of people think that there's not much that you can do in social media. We felt this whole army of people behind us, supporting us. And that's an example. It's a very small example, but it facilitated change and allowed us to film in court that day. So please don't ever think that you don't have a voice on social media. And, and I think the other thing as well is when we were posting, there was this idea as well of trust being built. So when, we kept running out of money. I think a lot of people thought we were never going to finish making the film. But, we would have an ask on social media and, please, we need to get to the next level. And I think because we were so transparent and we were showing this the whole time, we had a lot of film finishing grants, foundations that would approach us. Or when we would connect with them, they would say to us, because it was very important for us to not be able to take funding away from rhinos on the ground. So we had to look for film finishing grants. And, it was very easy for them to see that we already had engagement and there was trust behind the scenes. So a huge thank you to the Tanglewood Foundation, the Oak Foundation, Regina Mundi, and some local South African companies, BKB and Fumo, who really jumped on board and helped us to be able to finish the film. And so these posts from the field did help us grow our audience for our coming film festival campaign. And we had to look at all of this as a campaign, not only filming on the ground, but also to make a campaign to help us get through all the challenges that were still coming.
There is an incredible freedom in telling your own story. But for us, we had to spend a lot of valuable time on social media, engaging with our supporters, because in a sense, they became our executive producers. Then the next challenge we faced, I think, was the toughest of them all, the graphic nature of the topic. Rhino poaching is not a pretty picture. We've all been inundated with horrific images of hacked out faces and rhino carcasses. And we knew that so many people in the 4 years when we filmed told us that well, no one will watch a film about rhino poaching. So that was in the back of our minds all the time. We knew we had to show the brutality, but we had to do it in a way. We didn't want to turn people off. We didn't want people to switch the TV off after 10 minutes or walk out of the cinema after 10 minutes. So we needed to communicate the brutality of the crisis in a very deeply moving way, but without turning people off. And animation was one of the ways we did that. Here is an example.
So is this where you found him?
Yeah. I was at the gate, and I just trying to see where was the rhino, and I found Himpy was lying in the mud, and I tried to put this piece of log to try to keep his head out of the water. I could see his sinus, it was just all open. He kept putting his head down, so he kept drowning, and his breathing started to be very loud as well. And it was not crying like when they asked for milk, so it was
A different sound?
yeah, horrible one. He went through so much when he was young, sleeping against his mom carcass for 6 days, eating mud, and he died in the mud as well, It's just unfair. Yeah, just unfair.
Yeah, that was an incredibly tough moment for us. I mean, it still obviously moves us. We had images. We were able to show the body of Impy, and we had images of his suffering. But I think it was far more powerful to handle it in this way, and I think it was respectful to both characters, both the rhino Impy and to Axel. And I think a third challenge that we had was, which you all know very well, information overload. There was so much that we had to wade through. The rhino poaching crisis is so complex, and it's very layered. And I don't think we really understood that when we first got into it. And it took us forever until we felt comfortable that we had filmed enough. I think after 4 years we probably had. And then there was just too much, and we split it up into these mind maps. You can see them here in each theme. And we narrowed them down to about a dozen major themes. And within those, we had our characters and then layered issues. It was such a nightmare. I mean, just looking at them now, we had to figure out how to cut through all the clutter and to succinctly tell a story that would be worth watching. And I'm used to editing using cue cards, writing scenes or themes on them and laying them out. And we had 300 of those things, and they usually run a minute or two. So, if we had gone according to the cue cards, breaking down each one of those layered little moments, we would have had a 600-minute film. I don't think anybody would have sat through that.
I have to say, I hated those cue cards. Susan would put them all over the floor, and we would literally stare at them for hours, for weeks, and get nowhere. I really hated them. They actually made me feel physically ill. After, I think, week 3 or 4, it was just too much.
Yeah. So we got around it in the end, though. The secret to it was the 3-act story structure. It's something that they hammer down your throats at film school. And, we're talking about it today because while we've become, what's that word, self-starters, independent filmmakers, doing things very much our own way, breaking down the barriers that exist out there to limit us, and while that is important to do, there you can see the 3-act plot structure, there's still a time when rules shouldn't be broken. So, the great storytellers that actually made these rules, they work. It works, and it's what got us through in the end. So I think for both of us, that was an important lesson to learn. That while we had these challenges, they were overcome by being outside the system. But then this was one that we had to very much play by the rules to make sure that the story worked. And you can see here, there's our ultimate. That's our how the film is now.
I also just have to add, just because we focus on environmental and wildlife issues, we still have to make a film that's entertaining. It doesn't have to be boring, even though it's, of course, more educational and perhaps activist themed, but we still have to make it entertaining because you have to move the audience. Only when you move the audience can you hopefully inspire change.
So I think that was vital to us to have that entertainment aspect to it. And there you can see we had a lot of press and we had so much media. But this is something that we really wanted to show you all today. This is out of Fair Lady, and we were thrilled where we have, you can see that at times Stroop feels more like a thriller than a wildlife documentary. So that was fantastic for us. That we knew that people would watch it and by word of mouth pass it on, because it didn't feel like they were being preached to, that it was something that was engaging.
Then our next challenge was access. Bottom line, we chose a very sensitive in terms of security and multi-layered problem, the rhino poaching crisis, which meant we had to spend a lot of time building trust with the various role players and even our characters. And here is an example of that.
ani nge kutshembisi kuti agcina ikoti ili mara le kuti intene kutirha swinene. Eza lava a chopper na tindzwana kuma ku loko ri na chopper ya kota ku tirha ku hatlisa.
I think we are called to be warriors sometimes. We are here to uphold the law and honor the Constitution, but at the same time a warrior has to take that step forward and be prepared to take a life, to protect a life. Hunting poachers, people that are illegally hunting our wildlife, that will cause harm to other people, meaning that if my life is in danger or my men's life are in danger because another man wants to shoot at us, yeah, I'm going to shoot him for sure.
At the end of the day, someone has to stand between the rhino and the poacher, and in conservation today, it's us, the rangers. We got to stand between the rhino and the poacher. Otherwise, all the rhino will be killed. It's quite simple.
So we had unprecedented access to the Special Ranger Unit in the Kruger National Park, but it didn't happen overnight. We had a lot of meetings with park managers, a lot of emails back and forth, phone calls, for them to trust us as filmmakers, and that's understandable. Many risks involved, our safety and all of that. But it took time, but eventually we got our access that we really wanted. Same with the SAP's Crime Intelligence Unit. I think it took 3 years for them to allow us to join them on their busts and film their work. And also the National Prosecuting Authority, same there, various emails back and forth, phone calls. I actually think they just got tired of my voice, to be honest. But we pushed and we pushed, and eventually...
No, Bonné, I have to jump in here. Bonné is relentless. So, I mean, yeah, she's like a dog with a bone. She doesn't give up. So, I'm not, I mean, she's not kidding. And she did not give up. So eventually we got the access we wanted. But then we also realized, we couldn't just focus on where rhinos are here in South Africa. We also have to capture
the product on camera, the commodity, as some view it in Asia. And this was a challenge. Vietnam and China are both communist countries, and all forms of media are controlled by the communist parties. So we actually applied for an official filming permit in 2015, and we are still waiting for it.
So I think this was very difficult for us because both of us like to do things by the book, and we had to make a decision. We now had to go in illegally to go and film in Asia, and obviously we spoke with other filmmakers, people who do this, and for them it's very comfortable. It was not comfortable for us. I can be very honest about that. I remember Bonné telling me quite a few times to harden up when I was very nervous being in there and running around and putting files up into the cloud and worrying about where the cameras were hidden. It really threw me out of my comfort zone. It was incredibly nerve-wracking. But it's when we chatted with other filmmakers, they were incredibly helpful, and they do this. They're comfortable with this, and they did help us with that a lot. And here's a clip of us going undercover with the well-known filmmaker Carl Mann. Oh, there you can see us before I play that. That's putting the cameras on Bonné there before going in to see wildlife trafficking, wildlife traffickers selling all sorts of products. So yeah, all new to me, I must say.
Once you get the villages are right next to each other, you go to the other village, and when we finish, we'll film, we'll swap villages around.
Carl and his co-producer are on their next undercover operation. They're investigating a group of villages popular with Chinese tourists. We're joining them, but we'll split once we get in.
These villages which we're going to visit now cater almost exclusively to Chinese customers. All the tour guides take them there. It's, in my opinion, the place in Southeast Asia, the biggest consumer of rhino horn and ivory. And it has been going on for years. It turned over hundreds and hundreds of kilos of rhino horn and tons of ivory. There's big money changing hands in this place. These guys are multi-millionaires by now. They can take care of any law enforcement agency which exists in Vietnam.
Is this you guys coming up, eh?
No.
No, it's us. Shit, I'm gonna lose.
Yeah, me too. Carl and his team have driven on to the neighboring village. He's been arrested before, but this is our first time doing anything like this. Natural product souvenirs, wine cups and karma bracelets. Chinese signs are a clear indication of who visits here. As Westerners, we stand out. Wearing natural product does the trick though, and we're literally covered in hidden cameras. Susan has even taped a GoPro to my body so I can't ditch it if we're in trouble. A risk worth taking, as the button and key cameras can be jammed by the dealers who use cell phone blockers.
Đây mà, đây thì mới phải mua những các cái vòng đeo tay mà mẹ tao bán hàng kéo lắm mày đùa. Này. Thank you. Mẹ rồi chúng mày sẽ đưa vào đời.
Apologies about the language there, but I suppose that's the real story from the ground. Yeah, I mean it was quite interesting to get back and get the conversations translated and see what was there. Very eye-opening. But we did go on to get quite a lot of product, not only rhino horn but ivory and pangolin, and yeah, it was very shocking. And then I think our next challenge was trade.
And Susan always leaves this part to me for some reason. As we all know, the trade debate is such a sensitive debate, such a sensitive topic. Here, of course, in South Africa, it's legal to trade in rhino horn only within our borders, within South Africa. As soon as the horn crosses the border, it becomes illegal, because international trade in rhino horn is illegal and has been since 1977. But there are two groups on either side, pro-traders and anti-traders. The one group believes it will save the species from extinction. The other group feels the opposite, that it will push the species to the brink of extinction. And it has become like a religion on both sides of the trade debate. And there's so much infighting between individuals and organizations and governments, and we're still losing rhinos. So we had a lot of pressure from both sides to push the agenda in the film. But of course, as filmmakers, as journalists, it was very important for both of us to remain neutral. We wanted to show both sides of the trade debate and leave it up to the viewer to then make up their own mind. And that's exactly what we did. And I think it worked really well.
Yeah, and I think, you know, the other thing that happened as well is that we were offered large sums of money by groups on either side to help us with filmmaking. And they had good intentions, of course, but we just could not in good conscience, you know, take them up on that help. And again, as I mentioned, we were mindful all the time of funds that would obviously go directly to the ground to help rhinos. So that was a no-go area for us, you know, competing with rhinos in the film fundraising sphere. But I think also, you know, making sure that we stayed neutral in all aspects on the trade issue, that was very important for us. And then lastly, you know, our final challenge was actually getting the film seen. You know, we'd spent so long getting it made, and we tend to forget about that. But, you know, once your film is made, there's a festival strategy, and Bonné, you were great at that. She did all the research and designed that whole campaign for us. And luckily the film did really well. So many films are made and disappear because the money has run out and there's no distribution plan afterwards. And that was huge for us because of all the commitment on the ground. I mean, we had people that had gone on the journey with us, you know, vets, rangers, orphan rehabilitators, private rhino owners, prosecutors, activists, so many people on the ground. I mean, you know, I mean, you can just imagine. And then of course, the animal itself, the rhino itself, you know, that I think was pushing us the whole time. We couldn't just get the film made and just get it, you know, and say, well, it'll, you know, it's there. People want to see it, you know, they know where to find it. We knew we had to get it seen. So, you know, we were also very mindful of how many rhinos had died during the filming of STROOP, thousands. So we did owe it to them, and you know, and STROOP you know, as Jimmy mentioned, it's been seen at 35 film festivals around the globe, and it's gone on to win 30 awards. Some of them the best documentary film, which is the highest award that you can actually give a film. But you know, just having the film do well in the festival run, which obviously is important because it creates awareness. You know, the media back home sat up, they noticed, which is what we wanted. And you know, just because that happened, you know, it didn't mean it was smooth sailing for us. We came back home and we could not get the film distributed into cinema. No cinema chain would actually take it. So, you know, we'd had this incredible media coverage, and because we, I suppose, had this kind of maverick background to the whole journey, we just actually went, what the heck, you know, we did everything ourselves to kind of get this to, you know, to get it to this point. Why don't we just carry on? So we hired the cinemas and you know, we decided, well, we were going to release it ourselves. So what we did was, you know, firstly, I mean, it was freaking nerve-wracking because it cost so much money. But what we did was we advertised it again, thanks to our social media following. And, you know, Cape Town sold out in 48 hours. And then we had to add another 2 screenings, also sold out. And then Joburg, PE, Durban, Nelspruit, Polokwane, Makanda, Grahamstown, just all over. Here's the picture there from White River. And just incredible support for the film. And, you know, we also had the honorary rangers outside at White River. And that was wonderful, tying in, you know, with you guys coming through to help support. And also in Bloemfontein, it was really wonderful. And a huge thank you to Maureen Ruth, who did a lot of that organizing for us and you know, really reminded us all the time of the canine, you know, the canine involvement, which of course we've got such a soft heart for because of our time with Killer in the film. So, you know, and the other thing we found as well is many people who came to the cinema hadn't actually been to the cinema in years. And, you know, we used local newspapers, and it was very interesting to see. There may be a big Hollywood film out there in cinemas, but people actually made the effort to come through and see the films because they got a chance to engage with the filmmakers directly afterwards.
And I really thought we had a lot of press coverage because of the festival or during the film festival run. But as soon as we did the cinema run here in South Africa, we had TV interviews, radio interviews, newspapers, but still we had to push for more. For both of us, it was always important from the start. We want to get this film seen in schools, as well as communities adjacent to our national parks. We also took the film into the Kruger National Park. We had screenings there for about a week, under the stars, to the public, and that was really special. I remember being 10 years old and sitting in the Taba and Satara and watching those movies, and to have Stroop screen there, it was just really special for me personally. And yes, of course, we also had to screen it to the rangers, and that was very interesting. We got a lot of engagement from the rangers Q&A session afterwards, which I think is a great step in a positive direction. They were really interested about the rhino horn trade and also the product that we showed them that we found in Asia.
Sorry, Bonné, I'm jumping in here, but I remember it was so interesting. So many of the rangers came up to us, and you know, they were speaking Shangaan and trying to, you know, speak through to you, Bonné, and saying how they'd had no idea about the trade in Asia, and how it really opened their eyes to that. So that was incredibly rewarding, as you mentioned, yeah.
And we self-funded, you know, these screenings at schools and communities. So what we did is we asked our supporters to buy a 5-pack of DVDs. We call it an educational pack, which we then gift to the school, and that also helps us then to get their, you know, travel costs and accommodation costs. This is ongoing. Unfortunately, COVID happened, but it will still be ongoing after the pandemic.
Yeah, and when we were at one of the school screenings in Limpopo, it's, you know, just a quick story I would love to share with you all. We had a teenage girl, Bepele, who came up to us afterwards, and she was the secretary of the drama club there. And she was so moved by the film, but and I think this always amazes me, because it wasn't from a conservation aspect. It wasn't from a I'm going to get into rhino issues. She was so touched by Dr. Chang Nguyyen's journey in the film, the Vietnamese activist who had a really hard time convincing her parents of her dream to go into conservation. So Bepele said she couldn't wait to get home. She wanted to do drama. She wanted to be a drama teacher, and this now had motivated her. She was going to catch her 2 taxis home and go through to her family and say, you know, I have to follow my dreams, and my dream is to be a drama teacher. So, I mean, completely unrelated to rhinos, and yet Stroop had such a huge impact. So that is, I mean, there were so many stories about, you know, the high school kids coming up to us, and obviously in the communities with our community screenings as well. But just very powerful to see that.
And all this exposure brought us our greatest achievement to get the film seen throughout Africa. Mnet broadcasted last year on World Rhino Day throughout Africa. It was on Mnet 101, and it has gone on to be broadcast on all their movie channels. In fact, a month and a half ago, I saw Stroop being broadcast again on one of their movie channels. So that's been happening right throughout even this year, 2020. And then, you know, we also got the film online on streamers, iTunes, Amazon Prime, Google Play, Vimeo On Demand, and it's now available in nearly 100 countries and in 7 languages. So, you know, many people are able to watch Stroop, and of course that's just amazing for creating awareness.
And sorry, just to jump in, you know, into feedback as well. I mean, we regularly get tagged, and you can see there with the screening throughout Africa. As Bonné was saying, MultiChoice has been fantastic in making sure that it keeps getting screened. And as I mentioned, it's still on Showmax. I think films normally stay on there for about 3 months, and it's been over a year and it's still on. So yeah, so we regularly get comment from you know, from people feeding back about how powerful the film has been.
Also very important was to get it seen in Asia, and we managed to get it on the national broadcast in Hong Kong in Cantonese. We've got a clip here to show you.
西俄國喺亞洲市場黑市販賣，觸發大規模屠殺。
情況同戰爭冇咩分別。
佢高手，佢高手，後面嗰個，佢高手，伸手。
It's always amazing to hear the Rangers speaking in Cantonese. So yeah, I think that brings us to impact. You know, it's hard to measure impact. It's not a quantifiable thing, especially when it comes to a film that's you know being seen. You know, you can't. It's you know, you can't measure it. So I think for both of us, you know, we feel confident it has had impact and has made a difference, especially with the you know the comments, feedback that we get from people from being at the screenings. We've been very fortunate to be at the screenings and have people come up and talk to us afterwards. And you know, there was just one. I mean, it happens all the time now. But last week we got an email from somebody in Los Angeles. She works at an NGO there, a large NGO, and she had watched STROOP at a film festival that we had attended, the Santa Cruz Film Festival. I think it was actually our second or third screening. And she was absolutely hysterical afterwards. I mean, she just could not stop crying. And you know, we were trying to console her, and I remember we felt so terrible, obviously, you know, with her having seen it. And she was saying she'd been an actress at the film festival, and she kind of thought, you know, she's just going to pop in. And I remember her saying, you know, oh my goodness, I knew about elephants, I had no idea about rhinos, and this is happening to rhinos as well. And you know, just absolutely devastated that this had opened a world up to her that she didn't know about. And she sent a mail through to us last week saying that she had never forgotten STROOP, and in actual fact, she is now in charge of education at an NGO in Los Angeles, and she wants to go about screening STROOP to high schools there. You know, so again, it's how do you measure what the impact is and when it will come back through, you know, back through to you. So yeah, I think we've got no doubts that it has had impact in the 2 years that it's been out there.
I think it's worth just taking a quick look at the landscape now, 2 years after STROOP. Of course, we saw a decline in rhino poaching during lockdown, our very strict lockdown, level 5. We had one of the strictest lockdowns in the world. Closed borders, we were not allowed to travel between provinces. And of course, poachers has a certain way of doing things, smuggling horn out, either via vehicle to the airport and then in luggage to Asia, or on a cargo ship to Asia. And this, of course, couldn't happen during this very strict lockdown. I think, you know, in pre-statements released by the department about the decline, I think many of the media, the headlines were a bit misleading because everyone was sort of celebrating this decline, but it was only due to lockdown. And what I can say is that sadly, we have it on good authority that since the gates have opened, the numbers are shockingly on the increase again, exactly what we expected. How bad the onslaught is, well, we can't really say. We'll only know when we receive the stats, which I anticipate to be maybe January, February 2021.
Yeah, and I think, you know, if we do look at the rhino poaching statistics for the whole of last year, you know, 600 odd rhino were poached, and just under 100 were killed on private land. So, or, you know, 15% of the national loss. And you know, despite the private owners owning about 50% of the population. So, you know, we can see that, you know, there's a huge demand put on the private owners or you know, the smaller reserves. And in talking with these owners now, it's been incredibly tough for them, as they've obviously had no income coming in, you know, and from tourism revenue. And they've all said to us that during lockdown, the hard lockdown really helped them in terms, obviously, with the security, because there's now nobody driving on roads outside their reserves or their farms. So efficient enforcement, you know, the no travel on roads outside their reserves, as I mentioned, really did help. And we've seen that as well in Kruger with the gates as well. It's been feedback that that had a huge impact. So it's the lockdown was really eye-opening, I think, for many people on the ground. That with such hardcore enforcement, that does really help. So and I know there's been a dehorning in Pilanesberg. You know a bit more about that.
There was a massive dehorning operation in the Pilanesberg National Park, and that happened during lockdown actually. And unfortunately, they have lost rhino since we've gone from level 5 to level 1, and those were dehorned rhinos. And unfortunately, they are on a high alert at the moment, because we all know poaching increases during Christmas time. It's always over the holiday period we see an increase.
But I think there's also some positives during this time. We had the Indlovu case down in Eastern Cape last week, and that's been, we featured that in STROOP as well. And that's the infamous, the darting gang that would dart a rhino and immobilize and take the horn off, and obviously there'd be no reversal, and horrific. And I think a lot of people lose sight of that. They think because a darting sedation was involved, it's maybe somehow wasn't as brutal. So yeah, they had appealed their sentence. There was a wonderful sentence by Judge Pickering, and they 25 years, and they appealed that. And it was ruled on last week and thrown out, which was fantastic, and I think sets precedent for cases in the future. And a huge shout out to the public and to the owners, the reserve managers, the anti-poaching units, the veterinary teams, and local politicians in the Eastern Cape. They did an incredible job of making sure that they were fully represented at court, and it really does show that you can make a difference with that presence. And also the media picked up on that, the fact that the community really were quite involved in all of that. And I think before we get to the Q&A section, we just wanted to share a story about Killer. There were 2 heroes that we came across in the filming of STROOP. You can see Killer there at the bottom, and his handler. We don't mention his name for security reasons. We actually call him Canine Ranger. And people always ask us about some of our favorite moments from the film. Obviously, there were some horrific moments, but there were also some amazing moments. And Killer and his handler here, they were responsible for about 200 arrests in the park, and in actual fact set a world record, I believe, with the evidence being presented in court. You can see it there. Canine Ranger is presenting evidence about Killer's behavior, and there you can see Killer waiting on the helipad, about to go into the helicopter, so for an incursion. And it was an incredible honor to be able to see Killer at work in the park. As I mentioned, nearly 200 arrests. And in actual fact, we spent so much time with him, but we always knew to keep our distance from Killer. You can see Bonné there, keeping her distance. He was very protective of his handler, obviously, making sure that Canine Ranger, we kept away from Canine Ranger. And in fact, Killer was awarded the gold medal for bravery for saving his handler's life by the PDSA in the UK. And when Killer was being awarded this medal, there was huge pomp and ceremony around the whole thing, and Prince Harry was there, and one of the UK consulate attachés came up towards Canine Ranger and almost hugged him with excitement. And of course, Killer leapt up, and before we knew it, there was this whole big commotion, and we'd actually been putting a camera onto Canine Ranger, so we were right there when it happened. And fortunately, there was only a little bit of blood, and I think a lot of people said, you are aware that Killer is a working dog. He's going to be quite protective of his handler. And in the end, it was fine. But I think the people back in the UK giving Killer the gold medal were horrified the next morning when all the UK papers had had story of Killer, you know, the attack dog, the brave attack dog, you know, taking a munch out of the attaché, but you know, it all ended well. But yeah, it's sadly, you know, Killer is no longer alive, and his handler has retired, and we just always think of them so fondly. Two incredible heroes for South Africa.
And then we would like to share a little glimpse into our new film, Kingdoms of Fire, Ice and Fairy Tales. Very different from Stroop. It's an adventure quest to find 3 of Earth's most epic natural wildernesses, places that inspire awe and wonder, existing long before we even walked the earth, places that are timeless. And I think going on this journey, and I almost want to say this deep journey, because it allows a person to be as free as a person can be today. I think in all of us there's a part that just wants to escape from it all, what's happening in the world right now, and go into these kingdoms. Yes, we feel how small we are, but we are also reminded that we are still connected to where we come from. I think Kingdoms gives hope, and it's also a reminder that there is a planet waiting. Yes, there's a pandemic, but this season too shall pass. And I think it's time to maybe bring those bucket lists a bit closer, because if we can travel and go and explore these kingdoms, anyone can do it. Kingdoms will be launching tomorrow on Showmax, where it will be available exclusively for 6 weeks, and then it will be broadcast in February, March 2021 on Mnet. And we're actually organizing something very fun. We call it a watch party this coming Sunday afternoon, where we will watch the film all together, but from our different homes. We can watch it on Showmax and then engage with each other, ask questions on social media. So keep an eye out on my social media platforms as well as Stroop. You'll see the date and the time there. And yeah, here is the trailer.
Temperatures have dropped, so the snow has turned to ice. And how incredible is that? How incredible is that? Look at that. Might have frostbite, but as long as we have the shot.
I'm Bonné, and along with director Susan Scott, we spent years filming and thousands of miles traveling across continents to expose crimes against our planet.
For sure, that's definitely elephant ivory.
This time, we're on a different journey.
Incredible! Ice as far as you can see.
To find 3 of the planet's most epic natural wildernesses. This is the Arctic Circle. These are kingdoms that are timeless, holding untouched, incredible nature where wolves and bears rule.
The oldest, the largest, and best known national park in America, Yellowstone.
Where the planet never forgets to remind us of its power.
And it's what makes the park feel alive.
This is where darkness brings light, where legendary stories overcome fear.
The fairy tales that sprung from here actually saved this place.
And where souls are rejuvenated. These are the kingdoms of fire, ice, and fairy tales.
Well, thank you, everyone, and I hope you join us on Sunday, or when it's going to be available, as I said, on Showmax for quite a while, and then also broadcast next year on Mnet. Thank you very much.
Bonné and Susan, on behalf of all the members watching, we want to say extremely massive thank you and great appreciation for your dedication and the sacrifices that you have made in highlighting this plight of the rhinos. I think over the years we've got to interact with each other quite a bit, but you never really appreciate what sacrifices you had to go through to bring all this information through to the world. And as honorary rangers, we are truly appreciative of the work that is being done. And I, for one, cannot wait for the new movie to come out. Looking forward to it, and hope we'll see you very soon with that. Now we do have a few questions. A lot more comments and questions. So it's just go through some of those. Got from John Buerta, just a trivia question. Where did you ladies have your training?
Okay, well, you know, interestingly enough, I studied industrial psychology, something completely different from what I do now. And at university during my studies, I became very interested in stage productions, and I was part of a lot of shows, and I knew I wanted to tell stories. But I grew up watching 50/50 on SABC, and you know, my love for the natural world started at a very young age, with my parents taking me and my two sisters to the Kruger Park during holidays. So, and then I realized, but I want to tell stories, but I want to tell stories about something that I really care about, and that's the natural world. And I auditioned for 50/50. I did a drama diploma, I auditioned for 50/50, and well, how do they say it? The rest is history, I suppose.
And I don't know, John or Johan, you know, I was very lucky. I was at university in the States, and knew that I wanted to come back home and do filmmaking, documentary wildlife filmmaking. It had been something that I just had wanted to do, and I wasn't quite sure how to go about it. And you know, our professors at film school had said, you know, if you can get into editing, everybody wants to do camera. Every single person on the planet who goes to film school wants to be behind a camera and produce or make films, and you actually have to do your time. So I went to go and assist an ACE editor on the East Coast in Washington, home of documentaries in America, and learned a hang of a lot. And then came home and was very lucky to work for filmmakers like Peter Lamberti, Derek and Beverly Joubert, worked as their editor for about 6 years, Peter for many, many years, Richard Matthews, bless his soul. So, you know, just very lucky to be able to do that work before taking that step into doing, you know, some work that's like STROOP, that's very tough to do, but obviously very rewarding to be able to tell that story.
Great, thank you. From a question from Charlene Ace. I share your passion, but have an 8-to-5 job. You guys are so brave. Surely you were in grave danger during shooting STROOP and afterwards. Do you fear for your safety these days?
No, Charlene, you know, that's a great question. You know, we didn't know how much danger we were actually in STROOP. You know, you don't know if you're imagining stuff. You don't know if your mind is running away with you. You know, there were things that happened. You know, we were threatened. We received death threats when we were at court filming. Things happened. You know, poachers would take photographs of Bonné. Some of the syndicate leaders would stare me down. You know, you do feel that. And you know, there were some other incidences that happened. But you know, I don't know, something kind of clicks in you. And when you're around rangers who are threatened, prosecutors who are threatened, and you see how they act and how they behave, and this is part of their job, you suddenly, I think a lot of times we felt very silly and very stupid for being scared, because these guys and girls, you know, they're out there doing this for our rhinos, and they take these huge risks. And yeah, you know, it's, and I think also because we had such a big social media following, that also helped us as well. We knew that if something happened to us, if we were detained in Asia, we would hope that there would be a big enough outcry. I don't know if that's just being ambitious, but I don't know how you feel about that, Bonné.
Well, for example, we had to change edit suite 4 times to sort of stay off the radar. You know, undercover filming in Asia, we had connections here in South Africa. Every day, you know, the rule was we have to send a message saying we're okay. If you don't hear from us, something's wrong. And then you have to alert the authorities. So we went in there with a plan, and I think that also helped a lot, and it calmed us down in a sense. But now, you know, after STROOP has been released and so many people around the world has seen it, I don't think we actually think about that aspect anymore. And
I think also, you know, we knew that it had to do well, because if it did well overseas, internationally, that also would give us a little bit of protection. And, you know, as you saw in the presentation, we really did push that. so that, you know, it was accepted at film festivals, you know, and I think I remember you saying it would be nice if it wins an award, because South Africans are very thing about awards, so it would be great if it wins an award. And I remember saying to you, I think it must just, you know, be great if we could accept it into film festivals, because that'll help protect us. So, I mean, we never ever dreamed it would have the journey it had, and obviously that journey, you know, got us to Mnet and got the film seen in such a huge way.
Great. From Elrina Versveld, another war that requires similar attention is the war against abalone poaching. Can you please take this on as your next project?
Oh goodness, that's why we had to do kingdoms.
Exactly, to just feed ourselves a little bit, connect with nature, you know. Many people say, well, there has to be a Stroop 2, and I think there will be, but maybe in a couple of years. But yes, abalone poaching, of course, a massive problem. There are so many environmental problems, and I wish we could do films on all of them. But of course, we will try our best to shine a light on the important stories.
I think the biggest thing for us is we were quite shocked, and we devote quite a bit of time to it in Stroop, you know, something as, you know, as it's not trivial, of course, but, you know, for us in terms of the, you know, Stroop, seeing air pollution in another country, it's sort of this trivial thing, air pollution, and yet it had it's got such a huge ramification with the cancer treatments and the search for rhino horn and how that affects another species. So definitely air pollution really piqued our interest, and that is something we do want to do, a big investigative film, and I do think, you know, we had a lot of interested parties overseas who wanted to work with us, big broadcasters, but you know, when you sit down and you start doing further talks, you realize we're going to have to keep this independent, because, you know, we have to tell the story the way it is. We can't hide or gloss over things. So again, we're going to have to do it independently, and it will probably take a few years. So COVID has put a halt to that, but yeah. So we're not stopping with environmental issues for sure.
Awesome. And then from, I think it's Michelle Lambiotti. First, I must congratulate you on your dedication to support wildlife. Absolutely amazing. Thank you. In your opinion, what do you think can be done for rhinos and the other animals that are poached? Good luck for your future, and stay safe on behalf of those who cannot speak. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for your kind words. And, you know, we need to realize that there's no silver bullet when it comes to rhino poaching. I think an area where we can focus, we need to disrupt the criminal networks. You know, just arresting the poacher on the ground, as important as it is, will not change anything, because there are 10,000 young men waiting to replace that poacher. So we need to arrest, and more importantly, we need to convict the higher ups in this rhino poaching chain, the middlemen, the syndicate bosses. And then with regards to the criminal justice system, we need a system that works for the victim and not for the criminal. We need a minimum sentence for rhino poaching without the option of a monetary fine. We've seen that many, many times. There also has to be stricter bail conditions, in my opinion. You know, rangers will tell us they arrested the guys, but they've arrested them before, with all the evidence, blood on their clothing, an axe, a panga, all of that. And they're out in the park on bail, trying to poach rhinos again. That is just unacceptable. So I think we need to look at the criminal justice system, but we must also understand that if we want to see change, we need to demand it as the public. We need to make our voices heard. I always say we have to keep the conversation going. We have to keep the rhino story alive, in a sense, to keep the animal alive. And that's something we can all do as individuals. We're all on social media, we can talk about it, we can highlight those issues, and we can demand change for rhinos. That's very, very important.
Great. There's a question here from Andre regarding Killer. Are you happy to answer it regarding his passing?
Yes.
Or, okay. It was about, I've heard it about Killer at other anti-rhino poaching talks. Did he die living a dog's life or in the line of duty, and when?
I think, you know, we don't know much about working dogs. You know, both of us grew up with dogs as pets, And it's quite something to be out in the field and see dogs as working dogs. I mean, these guys are, guys, listen to me. I'm even using anthropomorphic human terms for them because, you view them almost as employees of sandparks, and they work really hard. They are incredible. And I think obviously that hard work, Killer, I think, had hip dysplasia, really bad hip dysplasia towards the end. And as far as I know, that in the end, the folks working with him and Johan de Beer Bedke does such an incredible job with the dogs there. And there's no ways they would want to see him suffering. So, he was euthanized at the end. And I think that's, you can't underestimate the hard work that these dogs do. So when, towards the end of their life, we must think about taking care of them.
Yep, fully agree in terms of that. We did mention earlier in the presentation that the Stroop DVD is available at the park shops and on Take-A-Lot. Are there other areas where you're selling Stroop at the moment?
No, those are the only places that you can get Stroop. Obviously, as we mentioned, it is on Showmax, and that's fantastic. We still can't believe it's still on Showmax because they take films down after 3 months. So kudos to MultiChoice for keeping it up there. So please, if you've got Showmax at home and if you've seen Stroop, click. I know it sounds crazy, but click on Stroop because it really does help keep the film up there for other people to see. But yes, if you want to do digital download, I know it's on, it's obviously not available here in South Africa because of the MultiChoice restrictions, but it is on iTunes, Amazon Prime for free on Amazon, and Google Play, and you can download it on Vimeo. So, but if you've got any problems, and of course this is very important. I'm actually glad you're asking this. It's very important for us to say. We always offer, and it was very difficult. We had to say no to quite, some big guns, talking to Netflix sales agents and things like that, because it was very important for us to be able to keep the rights to screen Stroop free educationally. So anywhere in the world, if you want to do an educational screening, contact us, stroop-film.com, and we will give you permission to screen the film for free. But one proviso, you cannot make money off the film. So we've offered that. I think we've had over 100 requests now, and we've only had one NGO take us up on that. So that is. I know people view it as a fundraising tool, but for us, people have got to see Stroop and walk away from it and feel, what can I do? If they've already paid a ticket to watch it, I think that almost absolves you to not doing anything afterwards. There must be a feeling afterwards of flip, this is really something that I didn't know was going on.
Perfect. And just the final one, the others we'll answer via email. How do we please join the movie party on Sunday? Via which media platform?
Oh, wonderful. I love to hear that question. Thank you so much. So we will have all the details available on our Facebook page. So that is, you can just type in Facebook Bonné de Bot on my page, as well as the Stroop Facebook page. You just type in Stroop Film. We will have the date, the time. Obviously, it's this coming Sunday. We'll have the time. It will probably be in the afternoon. And we will all watch on Showmax at the same time, but in our different homes. And then while we're watching it, we will engage live with all of you. So you can send questions on Facebook or on Twitter or on Instagram, and we can answer all those questions. So it's really something fun. We've never done it before, but
yeah, we've got to figure it out. Actually,
we're really excited about it.
Yeah.
Perfect. I think that's all the questions from our side. So again, really grateful for you guys coming on and presenting this to us. It's been an awesome evening. We really do appreciate the time and the effort that has been put into it. So from my side and from the Honorary Rangers, once again, thank you.
Thank you. And again, I know Bonné mentioned it at the beginning of our presentation, but we are so grateful for the work that the Honorary Rangers do, and in our time on the ground, there's a lot that you do behind the scenes that you don't advertise, you don't talk about, and we just want to say thank you to all your membership that's watching. We really we really appreciate what you do. I don't think, we always knew about the honorary rangers, but I don't think we actually knew the incredible work that you do behind the scenes until we were filming Stroop. So a huge thank you from us.
Thank you very much. It was a great honor and privilege.